Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all. This movie is a horror film from the UK, English language, released in the year 2021, directed by Sean Ellis, and this film is called The Cursed. So The Cursed is set in 1891. We have a group of officials who want these gypsies off their land. The gypsies say that they're stealing the land off them, is that because they were there first, but the argument is not going to have any winner. So they decide to wipe these gypsies out by force. So they launch a raid, they kill all the gypsies, but what they don't realise is that the gypsies are left behind a curse, and it's about to hit this family very, very hard and the community around them. So in order to stop the curse, they're going to have to first understand it before it's too late. So whether or not they can is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Cursed. This is billed as a werewolf film, but it is a very different kind of werewolf film. Now when it comes to the werewolf subgenre, few and far between you get some pretty good movies, but the majority of them are really bad. I don't know what it is about werewolves, but it seems to be the majority of bad movies are from this subgenre. You've got vampire films that a lot of them are actually quite decent, same with zombie films, but when it comes to werewolf, it's definitely one that hasn't been loved and appreciated as much. But for me, I love the werewolf. It's actually my favourite, but the problem with the werewolf, as I said, is that you get more bad films than you get good. So I didn't know what to expect with this movie. I saw the trailer and I thought it looked very generic, but after watching The Cursed, I actually appreciated the fact that it does take a different turn. It actually felt like a movie that is genuinely respecting the werewolf subgenre, and it's not just cashing in off things that have been done before. You know, that would be very easy just to carbon copy a very familiar and very successful formula, but this movie doesn't do that. It actually delves into its own mythology, its own lore, and that's something that I liked. It does have a little bit of a creative spin on it, and it's actually making a film that is genuinely for an audience, and it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but for me, I could appreciate the most that although this movie is not brilliant, I still enjoyed it because it was something a little bit different. It's not necessarily a straight out werewolf film, but it does have, you know, the lore of the werewolf, you know, with silver bullets and all that kind of thing. And so there are moments that give you the impression it's werewolf, but there are other moments that it has that creativity that allows it to expand its wings. And so you're watching a werewolf film, but at the same time you're watching a different style of film. And that was something that I appreciate, and that's something that Sean Ellis does bring to the table. So if you are a fan of the werewolf subgenre and you're tired of all the really crap movies that have been churned out, The Cursed, although it's not brilliant, it was still a very, very good film, and it's incredibly atmospheric. I will say that the atmosphere of this film is brilliant. It's a very gothic sort of feeling that it has. It actually made me reminiscent of Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. Now that atmospherically was brilliant, and this, The Cursed, has a very similar sort of feel to it. It's very gothic, and so it feels very cold, it feels very unforgiving, and that's the world that this movie is building. A very cold and unforgiving landscape, because this is a community that has a curse upon them. And so when they're trying to fight this curse, I thought as though it was very suspenseful, because the overall cinematography and the bleak feeling that the movie has plays a character of its own. And so I thought that was really, really well done. I thought the soundtrack and the score really contributes to that invisible presence that the movie has. And that was something that I appreciated again, is because these are things that are very, very difficult to do. And it's very easy to do jump scares. It's very easy to do gore, you know, excessive gore just for gore's sake and just trying to shock an audience. But it's very difficult to get the fine details of what you can't see. And so this is exactly what Sean Ellis does, and he does amplify that suspense, and he maintains it from start to finish. You don't know what this thread is, but you know that it's very barbaric. There are some really shocking moments of violence, but it's used very sparingly, therefore the impact is always hitting you. And so you know what the conclusion of, you know, if you're going to get caught by this curse, it's going to be absolutely horrific. And so although you don't gravitate to the characters so much, you still feel fear for them, because they're going to meet a brutal end if that's the case. And so you have some moments that really shocked me, and there were some moments that I thought took me off guard. It does give you the impression that it's going down a particular path, but it does take a different turn. And so, as I said, in a werewolf subgenre that is very generic and very worn out, this is a breath of fresh air. And so cinematography is definitely the best part of this movie. The horror set pieces are fantastic. And as I said, it all builds off that atmosphere and that sense that something is not right, that something really bad is going to happen, but you're not quite sure when or where this really bad thing is going to happen. And so, you know, messing with gypsies is a very, very risky thing, and this is where the community are going to find out exactly what that curse is and how they're actually going to try and beat this curse. And so if you like this type of movie, I would highly recommend it. I thought the acting was very good from everyone involved, especially the young acting performances. I thought they were very, very competent, but it's definitely the atmosphere that captures you. And so if you like atmospheres like Sleepy Hollow that has a very gothic feeling, then this is a movie that's definitely going to apply to you. It does play a character of its own, and it's a very, very memorable character. And so it is quite a scary film, but it's all because of the visuals. And so visually it does strike a monster inside your head, and it allows you to fully absorb the situation. I thought as though it was very entertaining. It was actually quite, the continuity was actually quite fluent, so that's something that I liked also. If I have issues with this movie, there were moments that didn't quite work. As I said, the creativity does expand its wings and give you something a little bit different, but there were a few moments that were a little bit silly when you actually know what the threat is. And so the movie works best when it's playing on your imagination, but when you actually see a few things, I thought as though it could have been a little bit better, and I thought as though some of the characters could have been a little bit more interesting and more, relatable. I just didn't really gravitate to anyone in the situation. I didn't really feel for anyone. There are some shocking moments, as I said, especially with the younger people of this community, and so that is shocking, and that shows you that all bets are off, and that does give you unpredictability. Is because usually there are taboo subjects in movies that directors won't touch, but this movie really does go for it, and so that's something I liked. But I thought as though there were some moments that I thought would have been a lot better if I could actually relate to the characters a little bit more. There is a little bit of a shield that is put up with these characters where you can't fully gravitate to them. There's always that slight sense of disconnection that I didn't really like, and I thought the ending was very generic. At the start of the film I thought, all right, this is going to play into the end, and then exactly what happened. When you see it at the end, I thought as though it wasn't needed. It was a little bit silly, but that was only a very, very small section of the film that I thought was actually generic, but the rest of the movie I thought really worked well. And so it's a very suspenseful werewolf film that's not necessarily a straight out werewolf movie. I have to be careful not to give anything away, but if you see the film you'll know exactly what I mean. It is following basic rules on the werewolf subgenre, but it is actually, as I said, expanding its wings and giving something a little bit different. So if it sounds like your kind of thing, go out there and see this film. Atmospherically, absolutely fantastic. I'm going to give The Cursed 3.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.